In this series and in my work, my goal is to empower you to think better about political issues and politics in general. And part of how to think better is how not to think. So now I will argue that tradition is a garbage value when it comes to politics. I was originally trained as an ideology scholar. And part of what you do when you're an ideology scholar is you figure out the structure in how people think about politics. A lot of people have dedicated a lot of time, very good scholars, to that. And what they find is there are a couple of what we call factors of ideology, underlying dimensions that drive your thinking. And one very consistently found is tradition, also known as a status quo preference, accepting the status quo and tolerating differences and deviations from the status quo. Now, I'm here to tell you that that's bullshit. That if you use tradition to guide your thinking about policy issues, then you're doing something wrong. So here we have the puzzle. We have millions, if not billions, of people using tradition as a foundation for, even consciously or subconsciously, for their political thinking, and on the other hand, me saying it's wrong. So why? Well, let me start by using Ben Shapiro, a prominent conservative. If he needs an introduction, a prominent conservative ideologist, who I have a lot of respect for in many ways, for the clarity of thinking he demonstrates. But in this sense, he gave me ammunition for what I'm about to say. And he defined, of course it's a simplistic metaphor, but he defined conservatism using the metaphor of a wall in the middle of nowhere. It's as simple as it sounds. Imagine there's a wall in the middle of nowhere. The way he put it, as a liberal might say, here's a wall, there's nothing around it. What am I supposed to do? This is useless. Let's break it down because then I can get from A to B faster. Just destroy it. Doesn't seem to serve any purpose, right? On the other hand, you have conservatives like himself who will instead pause and say, wait a minute, there must be a reason, right? There must be a reason this wall is here. We may not know what that is, but there has to be one. So let's just be cautious. Let's proceed with caution. If you are looking for examples on how it's ever present, just think about Trump's electoral campaign. What was the slogan? Everybody knows. MAGA, Make America Great Again. Now I want to emphasize the again part. Why that's super important to the point I'm trying to make here is that because it implies that at some point there was this good period, this golden age, and when things were working, when things were fine, and now we have moved away from it, usually by abandoning our traditional values. And it's there, waiting for us to return to. Now, this is not Trump's rhetoric. We can go all the way back to the dawn of time. It's been around for a very long time. That there was something the ancients had that we lost. I, in my youth, fell victim to this kind of thinking on numerous occasions, so I don't judge anyone for doing so. But I will say that we shouldn't. And the argument I'll make is extremely simple, and I will relate it back to the wall. We now know more than we ever did before. Now we are leaps and bounds more than we ever did before. And with that comes an understanding of why. So at its essence, the point I'm trying to make is this. There's nothing wrong with tradition. There's nothing wrong with using even the status quo in political thinking per se. What I think is wrong is when you use it just because. Just because that's how things have been. Because today we can actually understand. And we do. Think of the pharmaceutical industry. You don't just want your doctor to give you a pill to treat your whatever ailment just because and trust it on blind faith. Maybe you do, but you don't want your doctor to. You want your doctor to prescribe you what you need based on their informed opinion about what you have and how that medicine is supposed to work to help you. How? To understand the mechanism. You don't want them just shooting in the dark. You want them to use all the science available to understand how and why that is supposed to work, and give it to you because of that. Not because, Uncle Jimmy said that this is good for a sore throat and we trust Uncle Jimmy based on nothing, but because someone has done the studies. So going back to the wall analogy, this doesn't exist anymore. Walls in the middle of nowhere don't really happen. Someone has a reason, and with the internet, we can probably find out what that reason was or what those reasons were. So the analogy is great because it also shows you what doesn't exist anymore. There are no walls in the middle of nowhere. What we have is, maybe you don't know why it's there, but you can find out. And you should find out and then decide whether to go over it or break it down because of that. And that's how I feel about tradition. Implicitly, a lot of people have opposed same-sex marriage and other things as well, because that's just not how we do things. That's not how the ancients did things. That's not how our ancestors did it. And if you look back fondly on the past, maybe with a pang of nostalgia, you say, life was so much simpler back then when women were women and men were men, and women only had sex with men and men only had sex with women, and how much simpler that was. If you're using that to inform your view, I hope by now you understand why you shouldn't. What I am saying is go deeper than that. Don't just accept and support something because that's how it has always been done. Accept and support something because of the reason why it has always been done, and if the reason changes, you should change too, and so should your opinion. So regarding same-sex marriage, I think just because it wasn't allowed in the past, to me, that's no argument. We have to think about all the issues. What right do we have to tell people whom to love? What do I have to lose if they don't get to be together? That kind of thing, but not because it hasn't been like that or has been in any other way in the past. Blind acceptance of tradition is not acceptable, if you will. Just like with anything else, I hope I inspired you to think a little bit differently, because the goal is to think deeper, think further, and ultimately think better.